Hi friends, I'm Scott Giles and welcome to Power Talk, my podcast here on Facebook Live and YouTube. I cover topics related to spirituality, hypnotic coaching, and the hypnotic arts and sciences generally. If you want to know more about my professional work or sign up for my free e-newsletter Power Lines, check out my website, which I'll tag at the end of this video. Well, today I'd like to talk about mindfulness. This subject is very important to me. Mindfulness meditation, the art of memory, and journal keeping are the core of my personal spiritual practice. I first learned about mindfulness while I was in college as a philosophy major. I took a class in Eastern philosophy, and meditation is a core practice in that discipline. The most ancient religious writings in the world are the Hindu Vedas, which are mostly stories and poetry, and the Upanishads, which are the more philosophical works. One of the most difficult of the Upanishads is the Khandogyo Upanishad, and that was what we were assigned. Interestingly, the work begins not with laying out philosophical principles or logical arguments, but with instructions in how to meditate. Because the original writers believed the work would be impossible to understand unless the reader could explore the ideas presented in a meditative way. And so my journey into meditation began. The next textbook I was presented with was written by a famous Zen Buddhist, D.T. Suzuki. The writer pointed out that there were different forms of meditation and made some distinctions. In Zen practice, mindfulness is called Zazen. And so I began to practice it myself as an experiment, and I found that I enjoyed the study. After the years went on, I would come to appreciate the work of a modern Buddhist teacher, the late Thich Nhat Hanh, whose many books made the dynamics of mindfulness crystal clear. I also studied with two spiritual directors, a Tibetan abbot and a Franciscan priest. So I was exposed to the classical Buddhist form of mindfulness called Vipassana and to the Christian mystical version called centering prayer. In modern times, a secular system of mindfulness has emerged from the work of psychologist Jon Kabat-Zinn. And if you're curious, check out his book, Full Catastrophe Living. Dr. Kabat-Zinn has not only taught and written about mindfulness, but he has done research to conclusively show the practice is helpful both physically and emotionally for people with serious medical conditions such as cancer. And there are now mindfulness classes, sometimes called mindful-based stress management, in hospitals all over the nation. So no, mindfulness isn't a fad. It's a scientifically validated coping skill with a long and distinguished history. So what is it? Well, basically, it is stillness. Imagine that you have a jar full of sand and water and you shake it up. Well, now what you've got in the jar is swirling mud. And that's what the mind is like at baseline. It's full of thoughts, regrets, memories, idea, hopes, fantasies, resentments, the lyric of a pop song you sang with your roommate in college, and the scores of your high school sports team. No wonder deep focus on ideas is difficult because we're constantly distracted by internal noise. Mindfulness is to still that noise. You put the jar down and let the sand settle to the bottom and the water clear. And you do this simply by being still. Once the water is clear, you can see through it accurately, without distortion. without it obscuring things. That is what mindfulness does for your consciousness. It quiets down all the inessential noise so that clarity emerges. Through the regular practice of mindfulness, you discover who you really are, as opposed to the agenda projected onto you by others. You discover what you truly believe, think, and feel, as opposed to what others have told you you should believe, think, and feel. It can be a transformative practice. Now, I used to think that you had to do all this ceremony to do mindfulness work. You needed a special meditation robe, a zafu or a sitting cushion, a lotus posture, which I could never do well, incense, a gong. And I thought all of this because as a boy I had read the work of Alan Watts, who was the spiritual guru of the 1960s, and that's what he recommended. However, my spiritual directors disabused me of those ideas. You can do mindful work anywhere. I typically do it in my desk chair. I just turn off the computer screen, close my eyes, and focus on what I am observing in the moment without praise or blame. You can be mindful while walking, doing simple chores or other tasks. The idea is that you simply be still inside and not let the mind chatter and jump around. When it does, and it will, you simply notice that that has happened, and without praise or blame, stop paying attention to distractions and focus instead on the present moment. The feel of the air on your skin, the sound of your footsteps if you are walking, the sensation of the chair under your butt. When you are mindful, you realize that most of the problems you thought you had are not actually real. After all, you're fine in the present moment. You may have sadness about the past or worry about the future, but in the present moment, you're probably fine. So what are you worried about? Everything is fine right now. So many of our upsetting internal thoughts and feelings are actually unconscious judgments about how we think we want to respond to things. Well, if you're in pain, notice that, but don't let the thoughts about whether the pain will last or make judgments about what it could mean, because all of those things will just mess you up. All those thoughts do is make you less happy than you were. They increase your body tension, which can make pain worse, and distracts with fear and worry, which have never helped anyone and changed nothing. There's a lot in the ancient Stoic philosophy that parallels mindfulness, and that may be one of the reasons why I continue to value it. The Stoics asked, what's the purpose of worry? I mean, either you can do something about a problem you have right now, or you can't. If you can do something about it, well, then do that. If you can't, why are you upsetting yourself trying to do something that can't be done? If it happens, if what you worried about takes place, well, that will be the time to deal with it. And until then, just be happy in the present. With the regular practice of mindfulness, you'll begin to notice that a lot of the things you worry about actually don't happen. The famous Winston Churchill, former Prime Minister of Great Britain, is credited with having quipped, "I've had lots of worries in my life, mostly about things that never happened, so obviously worrying helped." Well, we smile at that because we realize that worry couldn't possibly have helped. Most of us worry about things that turn out to be illusions. And we'd be a lot happier if we stopped worrying about them and just were still and happy with what's occurring now. Hey, thank you for your time and attention today. I'll be back next week with another talk on a different subject, and you're invited to join me. It helps me a lot if you let others know about my work and my videos, so please like, share, and subscribe. If I can be of help to you, feel free to reach out through email, my website, or Patreon channel, and have a great week.